One of the most infamous mobsters of the 20th century was finally brought to justice today. James Whitey Bulger, who led Boston's Winter Hill Gang in the 1970s and 80s, was convicted of federal racketeering and conspiracy charges. Those charges included 19 murders, and the jury found that Bulger planned or carried out 11 of them. Bulger was the model for the Jack Nicholson character in The Departed. He's 83 years old and could get life when he's sentenced in November. Don Dahler is at the federal courthouse in Boston for us. Don?
Scott, Whitey Bulger sat stoic and emotionless as the clerk read the word guilty again and again and again. Afterwards, his attorney, Jay Carney, spoke to the media.
Mr. Bulger knew, as soon as he was arrested, that he was going to die behind the walls of a prison or on a gurney getting injected with a chemical that would kill him.
Over the 9-week trial, federal prosecutors argued Bulger was one of the most vicious criminals to ever walk the streets of Boston. And they said his rise from common crook to mob kingpin was made possible because he was protected as an FBI informant who supplied information on rival mobsters. That prompted many of his once loyal top deputies to testify against him, including John Martorano, a convicted hitman who spoke to 60 Minutes' Steve Croft in 2008.
I'll go along with a lot of things, but not no Judas, not no informant. I never informed or ratted on nobody. And if I could have killed him, I'd have killed him, but he wasn't there. And that's what I think he deserves.
Witnesses described Bulger's violence. He chained and tortured one of his victims before shooting him in the head. Bulger strangled Deborah Hussey because she was dropping his name around town. Kevin Weeks was Bulger's right-hand man. He spoke to 60 Minutes' Ed Bradley in 2006.
After he would kill somebody, it was like a stress relief. You know, he'd be nice and calm for a couple of weeks afterwards, like he just got rid of all his stress.
Bulger fled Boston in 1994 after a tip from a corrupt FBI agent that authorities were closing in. He spent 16 years on the run, most of that time on the FBI's most wanted list. When agents finally caught up with him and his girlfriend in 2011, they had dozens of guns and $822,000 stashed inside the walls of their California apartment. Tommy Donahue's father was killed by Bulger while he was giving one of the mobster's targets a ride home.
They killed my father in 1982. I was only a little kid, you know, so to finally hear that and hear a guilty verdict, it was a good feeling. It was a very good feeling.
Bulger will be sentenced on November 13th. Now, he is appealing. He claims he was promised immunity in return for protecting one of the prosecutors from a mob hit. Now, the judge, Scott, would not allow that to be brought up at trial.
Don, Bulger was an informant for the FBI back in the 1970s while these crimes were being committed. What does that tell us about the FBI office in Boston at that time?
It has been a real black eye for them, Scott. In fact, one of the prosecutor's main witnesses was a man named John Morris, who was a disgraced former supervisor for the FBI. He admitted to accepting cash and gifts from Bulger in return for tips. And the prosecutor said during trial that at least one of those tips, one of those warnings, directly led to one of the murders that Bulger was responsible for.
Don Dahler in Boston. Don, thanks very much.